Good evening and welcome to the Hoosier Football Tailgate. Tonight we continue our portal series, focusing on the defensive side of the ball right now for Indiana. And we're going to take a look at Preston Zachman out of Wisconsin and cornerback Carson Williams out of Montana State. Two different types of skill sets. Preston is a safety. Williams is a cornerback. They both, I think, bring some toughness and some playmaking ability. And we're going to take a look at those two additions tonight as we get into the swing of things here this evening. But those two individuals were, I think, big portal hauls for Indiana. And I do think, this side of the ball defensively really has to replace a lot of freezing up there. And okay, there we go. But having a group like this that's needed to help replace some of the productivity that's going to be lost on the defensive side of the ball, I think it was very important to get some of these portal guys to help negate some of the loss in the aspect of maturity, and then also guys that have really played a lot of football. So these two guys, I think, are going to be interesting. The kid from Montana State's really interesting. I think he's a very, very good cover corner. He's about D'Angelo's size. Plays aggressively. I like the way the kid plays. And then the Preston kid from Wisconsin, I think he's a smart, headsy ball player for them. Now, he was hurt this year. He only played, I think, 2 games for them this year. So he only played 2 games in the 2025 season. So we'll have to wait and see kind of where he's at in that aspect of things. I haven't heard anything from, the aspect of limited or anything of that nature for the show or for the spring practice, but we'll have to wait and see on all that. But I do think it's going to be a good group that they've brought in as a total defense, and we'll get through them all tonight when we take a look at them. We've had a lot of things that have happened in around college football here of late. There's been a lot of discussion about the 2014 playoff that was leaked to the Big Ten, kind of let out. There's many different viewpoints on that. I think the biggest selling point is adding an extra game on campus with the 2014 playoff and how they integrate the bowl system into it. I don't necessarily think it's something that the college football playoff is going to automatically jump to at this point in time. We'll have to wait and see. They're already locked into the 12th team for another year. But I mean, there's some good and bad about a 2014 playoff. And I think you're going to hear a lot of it that's bad, because I don't think people look at it as being that it's too many. And like I said, there's always going to be pros and cons to something that they put out there, but there's been a lot of talk about that over the last week. And the other thing that happened last week at this time, we were on the air. The Broyles Award was happening down in Arkansas at Oaklawn, and Mr. Brian Haynes is the winner of the 2025-26 Broyles Award that goes to the most outstanding assistant coach in college football. It's a very, very prestigious award. I'm tickled to death that Bryant got the recognition in that respect and things like that. It's one of those things that I know he doesn't put much stock into it, and no coach would. It's a great honor to have that bestowed upon you. But, Bryant's one of those guys that he talks about this as being an award that was won by a group of guys in his staff room more so than one guy. And I think that's the nice thing about it, is the uniqueness that he runs his defensive side of the ball, where there's a lot of input by all the guys. And I think that's an important facet of being a coach, is that you've got to be willing to listen to those around you, because sometimes those around you have good suggestions. And I think he's done that throughout the time that he's been a DC. And it was good to see that he got that recognition as a Broyles Award winner this year. That was a good thing to see and hear on Thursday night, that he was awarded that. And it was quite a unique thing. It's all on YouTube. You can catch some of his comments and interviews there on YouTube from that award ceremony last week at this time. The other thing that's going on right now is this NCAA eligibility thing that's kind of got everything in an uproar. Today, the NCAA has said that if these court cases that are still in the court system, the ones that were temporarily, had a temporary injunction on them, they're going to pick up. And they basically said if the NCAA would win those cases, they could go back and make teams forfeit games that an ineligible player played, removing statistics from the record books, so forth and so on. And why is that important? Well, Indiana is right in the crosshairs of that because of Lewis Moore. And if they would come back with and win that court case, Indiana could be forfeited all the games that he played in, which were all games, 16 of them. And that could be a interesting dynamic. But again, I say that from the standpoint is that the NCAA is ultimately it's going to have to come down to something that's going to happen in the courts that's going to ultimately decide this cases and the cases that are to be heard and things of that matter. And I think the NCAA is using this as a little bit of a scare tactic, because if it would happen to win these cases, I mean, it's already said and done. But we'll have to wait and see. But Indiana could potentially be in some jeopardy there, especially they could get penalized monetarily, and that could wield a big stick as well. So, that's something to keep an eye on with this court case and how that all proceeds here over the next month or so. But it is something to kind of keep attentive to, because what may or may not come out of these cases, because they're all individual cases, is going to be, 50% of them are going to win. The student athlete will win, and 50% of them, the NCAA will win. Probably is all how it matters. But we'll have to wait and see what all comes of it. But it's an interesting debate topic right now, and what the NCAA could do, because they do have that stated in their penalties that if you get caught playing an ineligible player, you can forfeit games. There's a fine involved and things of that matter. So it'll be a really interesting topic here as we head through spring ball. But this is something that's going to be rectified sooner rather than later, because I think they need to have something on the books that ultimately gives the NCAA at least something moving forward to enforce the rules that are on the books, because the rules that are on the books are basically made up by all the schools that are playing at the Division I level, the Group of Five level. These are all rules that were implemented under the presidents and ADs and conference commissioners a long time ago about how they handled different things. So they've got to have something on the books in order to rectify some of these eligibility issues and things of that nature. The other thing that's been a big topic this week or last week or so has been the athletic departments releasing their fiscal statements. There have been some interesting disclosures, Rutgers being one of them, who's, I think, 500 million in debt, something to that equation. It's just a crazy number. As are other schools that are losing their what in athletics, with everything that has gone on with the payment of players and the rev share. Because remember, the rev share went 100% to the schools, so now they're not getting that big check. It's going to pay the players in the agreement that's in front of them. And Indiana released theirs, and I think they had a budget surplus of 10.4 million, which I tell you is a great thing to see, that Scott Dolson and his crew of what they had to do. Remember, last summer, end of last spring, they started making some reductions in staff, mostly within the administrative staff there at Indiana, to ease some of the burden and take pressure off of them in terms of their bottom line. And with the success of football and those type of things over the last 2 years has really, really helped the department. It's helped the athletic department. It's helped football for that matter. And to release that you had a surplus of 10.4 million for the fiscal year last year, that's pretty amazing. It'll be interesting to see that fiscal year for this coming year as well. So it's good to see that Indiana has done the things the way they needed to do, foreseeing some of these issues a couple years ago, and started making inroads in terms of what they were going to do and how they were going to handle it. And you got to give Scott Dolson and their staff a lot of credit for what they've done over the last couple of years in terms of being ready for the time that they went to this newer model. And I think they've done a great job of that altogether. So that's something too to continue to watch and listen to some of these schools that have got big time deficits, which leads you to believe that something's going to come down to help those schools that have deficits, because they're ultimately going to be in a situation, can they continue on if they can keep losing money? And athletics has to be a self-sustaining entity. They can't take away from the educational aspect of things. So it'll be interesting to see how some of these schools handle that, or what may transpire because of some of these big deficits that schools are having. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe button for us on YouTube as well. And if you can retweet, like, and all those things, the different video feeds that are out on X or Facebook, we greatly appreciate that as well. It goes a long way in helping us in terms of getting our channel out there and recognized. For those that may not have seen us yet or not, we do appreciate that aspect of things. So appreciate you guys doing that as well. But that's the thing that is really important, is to get some of that stuff out there. And we appreciate you guys being able to subscribe and things of that magnitude to the channel, and also hitting the notification bell for our next live. You can get that delivered right to you. Let me see here. Eric has a question here, I think, if I'm reading that correctly. Got through where do you see IU standing this year with a new team? Great talent coming out. Well, yeah, I do think on paper they've made their success with the portal. I do think that is, for this year's team, is going to go a long way. I think you'll have a better grip of where this team will stand probably at the end of spring. I remember last spring when I was in attendance, and one thing that you knew coming out of spring is that Indiana really had a good offensive line. And that went a long way to why this team had success this year was because the offensive line play was much better. So I think that's a continued, question mark every year in terms of who you're bringing in, who's going to be at the front of it, what you got depth-wise, because that was the thing too with them. They had some depth. And this year it's going to be defensive line in the spring. You're going to be able to see how that comes along as well when you talk about some of the holes they got to place there in the defensive line. So it's kind of a to be determined in that respect. But I do think if you look at it on paper, purely paper, and you're kind of looking at the names and who they are and kind of how they fit into the different scenarios with this team offensively, defensively, it's very encouraging. It's very encouraging of what they've been able to accomplish with the portal. So appreciate the question. And again, if you got a question about something or a comment, by all means, we want you to fully participate. Put that in the comment section. We'll try to get to it as soon as possible. And we want it to be as much as engaging for you as anything here tonight as we move forward with this portal series that we're doing. Now jumping to the defensive side of the ball. And again, this is going to be a great aspect of things that Indiana is going to be going through with some of these things with the portal. The biggest thing that, whoops, sorry about that. Don't need that up there. The biggest thing that Indiana, as always, is they did a great job of not giving up big plays this past year. Again, that's always something that a defense has to be ready to guard against, is that defenses really hurt themselves is when they start giving up a lot of big plays in a game and chunks of yards to an offense because of what that does in terms of momentum and things of that nature. Indiana, I think, was very good with that last year. And I think they're bringing in the right type of guys when you think about who they brought in thus far on the defensive side of the ball. So it'll be interesting in that aspect of it. Have you heard anything about Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State leaving the Big Ten? I have not. The only thing that I have heard of late when it comes to the Big Ten is supposedly they have been there's been some discussions with Utah out of the Big 12 coming into the Big 10. But I highly doubt those schools that you mentioned there, Denny, would leave the Big 10. I just don't see that happening. But again, in this day and age, you can't say never because money is always involved in that. And if it is better for a school to jump from Conference A to Conference B because they're getting a ton of money, then they can go right ahead and do that also. I mean, we just saw it with Sacramento State. I was a Mid-American Conference guy, played in the MAC, coached in the MAC for 9 years. And the Mid-American Conference has always been predominantly a Midwestern league. Travel was always easily done. You never really had to fly anywhere. And now the Mid-American Conference has brought in Sacramento State into the conference, which I cannot believe, to basically replace Northern Illinois, who's going to the the Mountain West. Excuse me. And they're paying in like $18 million to join the Mid-American Conference. Plus, they've got to play the flights of all the MAC teams in football out to the West Coast. I just don't know how you can ever think that's going to be a wise move. So, again, you can never say never, but I cannot imagine a scenario where you have all those teams involved in. And like I said, the only thing that I've heard this week is the potential of Utah being a target of the Big Ten potentially. But again, you got to be careful with a lot of these rumors and stuff because of, I know a bunch of Facebook stuff is always bad in terms of their messaging and where they're getting it from. It's mostly clickbait in that respect. So you always got to be careful. And I've been a victim of it as well. So it's not like I haven't fell for some of that stuff as well. But again, don't think that would happen, but we'll find out pretty soon. Yeah, they did have a great tackling team. And it's crazy to think that their setup is they hardly tackle live in practice in that respect. So it's pretty interesting that their tackling has been superb and they tackle very little in terms of in season or spring live tackling. I don't think every conversation I've had with Brian has been his willingness to wanting to stay. Now that doesn't mean he doesn't want to be a head coach sometimes, but I think right now where he's at in his career, he's only been a D coordinator now, I think for 5 years. And I think he loves being under Sig and what he brings. And I think Bryant just likes being the head coach of the defense. Now, that's not to say if something comes along, where there's a lot of interest in him, that he wouldn't listen to him. But I don't necessarily think that's going to be the here and now. As far as whether or not they would name a coach in waiting for whenever Sig would decide to retire, I'm not sure that's something they'll do now. They may down the road, but I don't see that happening now in that respect. But anyway, heading into this, let's talk about Mr. Zach Preston. And let me see if I can pull something up here just a second about this young man before we jump over to any of his video. And just something I saw about him and his career there at Wisconsin. And, you know, his PFF stats and stuff. But if you can see here, you know, pretty darn good how he came up, you know, how he graded out, you know, 83.5 for his career, 4 total interceptions, and really good coverage grade. And I think that's one thing about safeties. And Lewis Moore was kind of like this in some respects too. You know, they don't, you only notice a safety when it's bad. You know, that's the thing, you know, where's the safety? Because he's not deeper in the deepest. But Lewis Moore was a smart player. He was smart in a lot of ways that the defense put a lot on him in terms of coverage checks and things of that nature. I think Preston's the same way. I think he's a very smart kid. And, you know, he's played since he's been a sophomore. And like I said, he only played a couple games this year due to injury. So I don't think it's going to be something, I don't think it was something major. And I don't think it's going to keep him out of spring practice. But to bring a kid in like this to potentially fill the shoes for Moore, I think was very important. And I like his play and I like how he does things on the field and how he competes and things of that nature because, you know, that's the one thing. You get some of these kids, you're not quite sure, you know, how they stack up in that respect. But I like the way this kid he plays, and I think there's a lot of good to him. And I think Indiana did a great job of getting him here. And it was pretty quick when you think about it. You know, when you evaluate guys like this, again, I don't know if there was any previous um, relationships with Preston. I don't know if there was any before he went to Wisconsin and whether or not there was something with him when coach was at James Madison or whatever. I do not know that. But they moved pretty quick on this kid when he jumped in the portal. And it was pretty quick that he pretty much went into the portal, committed to Indiana. It was over. And I think that was one thing that said to me is that they must have really liked this kid on tape from what they had saw maybe a year ago or from early games this year to really put him as a high priority to get through the portal this year. And I think what you get with this kid is you get a tough kid, smart, and he's very fluid on the field. He's not, you know, I think he's got good hips and I think he rotates really well. And I don't, you know, I see him fitting into the scheme that Bryant likes to run very easily. And I do think the way he's played it will fit the style of what Indiana likes to do when it comes to defensive football with their safeties. And he'll be a good fit for Bryant in that respect here. Let's get over here to the Coach Griff video room. Let's get this up and running. Thanks to Quick Cut, the scouting software that I utilize. They've been very good friends of the tailgate and get a chance to watch Preston here for a little bit. Maybe, maybe not. Well, maybe not. We'll have to wait and see here as we get some crazy things happening here. Uh, let's see what we got going on here. Well, let's do this because I don't understand why this is freezing up like that. Huh. It's really weird. Let's see here. Concept for it. He's got the quarterback. So he should not commit before he knows that that handoff is given. But what he does is he's going to keep everything on his inside shoulder. And you can see him here when he starts up, he first checks to make sure the quarterback gave it. And then he starts collapsing back in on the hole. But that shows me there the smarts of playing his responsibility, not doing something he's not supposed to do. Very good in that respect there. Quarterback sweep. And again, he's doing a good job here because he's forcing him on, keeping the play on his inside shoulder. The worst thing that could happen is let Milrose get on the outside of it here. So he forces it back up inside, takes on a block to where all his teammates were, and it goes as a loss on the play. Here's another one showing his fluidity in terms of how he moves. So there's a way he rebounds. Now, he's not responsible for the quarterback here. 8 is on the edge, the defensive end. He kind of got down too far there. But Preston recognizes it and comes out and was able to make a play there because the defensive end did not, carry out his responsibilities. I don't think we have any audio on this, but this is the thing that I picked up of him showing him, and the reason I put this here is this is one of his interceptions from this year. And what he does here as a safety, he's following one on the slant. He runs a sluggo route, slant and go, and he does a great center field turn here. That's not easy. And then he's in a position to go make the play. So you can see this kid's got some ability. And I like the way he plays, and I think he'll be a great addition. That's just another look at it from that perspective. But again, I think this kid is a very dynamic player. He missed only played 2 games this year. This is another pick that he had a year ago and some of the plays that he's made through the years. But I like what he does, how he plays, and how he leads. I think he's going to be a great addition to Indiana's secondary. And I think it's a great pickup. But you can see smart player, moves well. I like his hips. And I think he's going to be a guy that will fit right in on the scheme that Brian Haynes likes to run at Indiana. And I think he's going to do a great job of that with this type of defense that Indiana has. So I do like him. I think he's another great pickup here. I know I saw some other questions here. Let's see. What I heard is that the teams would go the way of Notre Dame as independents, keeping the well, I mean, again, that's not a bad thing. I mean, that's the aspect of not being in a conference. You get to share you're not sharing your money that you make, but the Big Ten has done an equal distribution regardless of how you finish, if you went to the national championship or things like that. And Indiana's benefited from that for a number of years. So it's kind of hard for them to say that they want a different allocation now that they've won the national championship when for the last decade and a half, they've been ones that have been benefiting from it. What's my opinion on Schott, and what are your thoughts on Munson? I'm not quite sure on that. I know they're in thick with him, so I think that's a very good opportunity for them to break down the doors of a 5-star potentially. We'll have to see in that respect. The film I've seen him on, he's one of those no doubters. I mean, he's a legit big time player. Be great for Indiana to get a shot. I'm biased because I've seen the kid play. I called, I do color analyst on radio broadcasts up here in the Fort Wayne area. I saw Shot play about 5 or 6 times. He's a big time player. I think he's going to be a legit big time tight end, and he's young, so he's going to have to grow into it. That will be a great addition to Indiana. Yeah, I could see them potentially moving him up into that rover spot. But we'll have to wait to see what happens all in the spring. They may take Preston and move him up into that area too. So, because he does pretty good in coverage. So we'll have to wait and see on that because he's a little bit bigger, stronger kid as well. So that's what spring ball's for. You can move guys around and we'll see what, kind of comes to the, kind of that top on it. They're going to get their 11 best guys on the field. And if that means moving some guys around to do it, they'll do it. I mean, I just know that's what it'll do. So, but it's a good problem to have is too many safeties that are really good, especially if you got that rover spot that they can put a guy in. And I could see Preston being in that spot very easily. But we'll wait and see what all transpires from the spring ball and such. Hey, hang in there with me. You're going to come back. We're going to do Carson Williams next, a young man from Montana State. You're going to see a lot of things on film that remind you of Mr. D'Angelo Pons right after these messages here on Hoosier Tailgate on thehoosier.com.
Hoosier fans, take a moment and soak this in. Indiana is national champions, history made, banners raised, a season we'll talk about forever. And now it's time to wear the moment. Head to My Fanatics store and grab the official Indiana Hoosiers national championship gear. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, and championship designs built for fans who lived every snap, every fourth down, every win. This is authentic Fanatics gear, not knockoffs. Designed to last, comfortable, and ready to rep anywhere you go. Whether you're at the game, around town, or watching next season, knowing who sits on top, this is how you show it. Supplies won't last forever, and once it's gone, it's gone. So don't wait. Hit the Hoosier Tailgate Fanatics store, lock in your Indiana National Champions gear, and wear it with pride, because this championship is forever.
Hoosier fans, listen up. If you're serious about the Hoosiers, thehoosier.com is where you need to be. We're talking insider reporting, film breakdowns, recruiting, and transfer portal coverage you won't get anywhere else. And when you subscribe, it's more than just one site. You also get full access to Rivals, On3, and The Athletic at no extra cost. Right now, you can jump in for just $1. Then it renews annually at the regular rate. $1. Total access. No brainer. Head to thehoosier.com and join today.
Welcome back here to the Hoosier Tailgate on thehoosier.com. Appreciate you being a part of the tailgate tonight. And as we continue our series on the portal pickups that Indiana has this year, I do have some mock depth charts of kind of this defense and offense for that matter. I know there was a question about who is going to probably be a center next year. I would imagine Lynch will move back to center. I think that's kind of his next move. He's been there. He practiced it last year. I think in one game he actually took some snaps at it, but you can bet that he'll probably be that guy, especially now that they're brought in Bruner from Wisconsin, the big, tall kid. So I think he'll move in at center there. And I think, again, he'll do a great job. He's a really good player. Let's see, let's go over here. I don't know if you can see that too well. See if I can blow it up some. It's not letting me blow it up. Well, here we go. There we go. That's a little better. Got this out, Hoosier Huddle, and they had some of this on their pages and stuff, but they have Baldwin at that rover spot, but you can kind of see how they've kind of put it in here with everything for this defense. We just talked about Preston, the safety, and what he brings to the table. The defensive line, with you got Tucker, you've got Landino back. I do think once we get through spring, I think we'll have a really good feeling on that defensive line. But on paper, it looks really good on paper. There's no question about that. It does look very good in that respect. Going ahead here with Carson Williams, this kid played at Montana State. Really good player for them. He was a legit cover corner. He does a lot of great things. I like the way he plays in open space, moves well. And, I think he's a guy that I said resembles in some respects what D'Angelo was. He's a junior, sophomore, redshirt, I guess you should say, redshirt junior, 5'11", 175 pounds. But he had some great couple seasons out there at Montana State, out of the Texas area. And I don't know how this kid evolved to getting to Indiana. Really don't. I don't know if they got a tip on him or somebody called him up and said, hey, you need to take a look at this kid. Because you wouldn't much think that you would go to the FCS to go pick up a corner to jump to the Big Ten. Now, Montana State is darn good FCS, won national championship, and they're going to be a lot more powerful now that North Dakota State has made its jump to Division I. But this one was kind of like they jumped to an FCS school to pick up a corner, which I got a feeling they had to know something about this kid because when you watch him, you'll understand. But he's a really good ball player. He moves well. I think he's got toughness. I think the one thing that stuck out to me is he likes to compete in that respect, and he's got strong coverage skills. So with what Indiana likes to do, I think he's going to be good. And he's got 3 years of eligibility. That's the other thing. So when you talk about Preston, he's got 1. This kid's got 3 left, which I think is important because he get him in the system for a year or two. It's just like the Ryland Gandy kid who came in from Pittsburgh. He didn't play much this past year because of the cornerback situation was pretty much in good hands, but he has another year. And that year, he could be a guy that becomes a big time starter for him. But you got Gandy and Sharp, Williams, you got Jalen Bell. I mean, they got some good corners now. We're just going to shuffle through and see how they all fit into the equation per se, because you got to like what they do in that respects. But I like the way this kid plays. I think you guys will see it here in his tape as well. But let's get over to see his tape here real quick and try to get his thing up and running here if I can. Here we go. All right. He's number 8 in this. So he's at the top here. This is in the FCS national championship game against Illinois State. They won in overtime. But you can see he's a very fiery kid in how he plays the game. So you'll see one here too. This is what I liked here, reading and reacting. Here he's backpedaling, sees it, makes the commitment, and boom. Very good. Very good. Here's another one. This is great effort. Watch what he's down here at the bottom. He's getting blocked now. He sheds the blocker, takes off running, and he causes a fumble just because of effort alone. So he is a big-time player. And, with these Montanas and Montana States of out there, these are only two schools. So they're, this is their big-time football out there. These guys occupy the national media out in Montana because they're the big two programs. Again, good break on the ball here. You can see him, boom. So he's got good feet, good hips. He can read it well, and he makes adjustments to the ball very well. Again, back here in the quarterfinal game, almost got a pick there. This is the bad thing about these. You can't get a lot of good film on them because they're mostly TV copies, but he makes a great play here, knocking the ball out of the wide receiver's hands. Kind of get to see some things here. He makes a great read there, goes in and is there to make a tackle. So he's very instinctive. He moves quick. I think he's got great speed. I don't think he'll have trouble adapting to this play. And here's another great read and react, make a play for a loss. So again, I think he's a guy that will, here's another one. Just watch him here. It's like he's shot out of a cannon. Boom. He is fast. So I really like this kid as well in terms of what he brings to the table. And it is the coverage ability. He reminds me a little bit of D'Angelo and the fact of how well he can close and make plays like this. Those are the things that corners have to be able to do too, is be able to tackle in space and make plays on the ball. So I think that's going to be a thing and he played special teams really well. Again, watch, this is his speed is unbelievable. He just does a great job here of closing, reading it, boom. And so that to me, that's kind of what jumped out at me on tape is his read and reaction is pretty good. So I like what he brings to the table as well in all of this for Indiana and what they get there with that kid, because I do think he is a kid that will fit very well into the system. And like I said, I don't know how this kid popped on the radar for Indiana. Another thing is that when he went in the portal, it wasn't very long before he was gobbled up by Indiana. So somebody had to know a lot about this young man out at Montana State. And when you watch film of him, yeah, he looks the part. Now we'll see in spring and how he develops. Now he's got 3 years, so it's not like he has to come in here and be a world beater, but he's got some years to develop, but he can provide depth. He could be a special teams player and allow him to acclimate to the big time level, because this is different than playing Montana or North Dakota. Those type of, even though they're talented teams, it's just a different level. So he may need some time to adjust, but I do think he has the technique, the skills to be really good corner. And Indiana does such a great job with their secondary anyway. I think they'll be able to coach this kid up, and they'll get every bit of talent out of him that we see in this respect. So, yeah. Never heard of this kid. Yeah, I mean, again, you would know nothing about him just because he's from Montana State, but he has to be pretty darn good for Indiana to pick up a kid from FCS and bring him to group of 4 team in that respect. So, like I said, they had to know something for this kid to end up in their portal, and a lot of people have talked about this kid's talent out there and how good he is. Trust Sig and his process, no question. See a good player, everyone know quickly. I think he'll have some things he'll have to acclimate to, but because he has a skill set that's going to enable him to adjust well, and the fact that he's competitive and he's not afraid to go stick his nose in when it comes time to making plays in space on the run. Again, it's another guy to go compete in the secondary against who Indiana's got, because that's what you want. If you got more competition for Jamari Sharp and Gandhi and other guys, the better, because that's just going to make the whole group better. And a matter of fact, that's what made Jamari Sharp the corner he was this year, because 2 years ago, I'm not sure they were sold on him being the guy. But he went out and competed, and who he competed against made him better. And you could see his development to the point where he went and took the job, and he earned it on the field by how he played. And he put a big time exclamation point on his year with the big pick in the national championship game. So again, you got to have that competition in every spot on the field that's going to make you a championship caliber team. And that means you're going to have depth, and the skill sets are all going to be there from that perspective. In that respect as well, when you talk about this, I do think the other component that you'd have no idea on, but you got to feel pretty good about it, is how these guys fit within the system that Indiana has. And that's going to be the thing that I think that Sig does a tremendous job about bringing the right guys in that are going to fit in the locker room. He's not going out and bringing in big personality type of guys. He's bringing guys in that he feels not only can play the game, but fit within the structure of their team. And that's the one thing that he does the best, in my opinion. Now, outside of evaluating talent, the best thing that he's able to do is project a kid and how he sees him fitting in within his system and the team aspect of things. And I think that's what these two guys bring to the table in that. Is Sharp an NFL player? I don't know if he's a draftable or, be a draft pick type of guy. We'll have to wait and see. I don't think there's any question he'll get a shot, because I think, DBs are wildly needed in the NFL. And we'll have to see how, what type of year he has this year, and whether that, catapults him up the board in some people's eyes or not. But he had a really good 25 year and played really well for Indiana. So again, I think if he puts 2 years back to back and puts it on tape, I think there's an opportunity that he'll get, whether it's draftable or not, in that respect. Well, I appreciate you guys being with me again here tonight. We're going to jump over to stay on the defensive side next week. We'll look at moving some up front of the defensive line, because we got a couple big cats from Kansas State to take a look at that like to come off the edge. And these two guys are going to cause havoc in the Big Ten next season. But be with me next Thursday night at 7:30. But once again, thanks for joining me here tonight. We'll see you next week, all right here on the Hoosier Tailgate on thehoosier.com. Good night, everybody.